Compute vehicle inventory times the retail price. I'm hitting F9. You can see what's going on here. We have numbers moving all over the place. Compute vehicle inventory times retail price. What are we trying to do? Trying to get a number. Trying to figure out, well, particular auto, inventory, and let's sum them up. We're going to use, well, SUMPRODUCT. We're going to use COUNTIF. Great combination. You're going to use these all the time. Here, we're going to use SUMPRODUCT, and we're going to squeak it out one way or the other. The functionality, the multifunctionality of SUMPRODUCT, I'm going to dive into. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss a couple of interesting formulas. And we're going to use the SUMPRODUCT and the COUNTIF. Then we're going to use the SUMPRODUCT. Brad Williams, Excel primed. Let me explain how this is going to work. It's pretty straightforward. We have a bunch of automakers. We have their inventory and we have their retail price. What we want to do is match the automaker to their retail price times their inventory. Pretty straightforward. We're going to use, as I said, we're going to use for the counts, we're going to use the SUMPRODUCT COUNTIF. And then to count the inventory of, in this case, Saturn, we want to look to see what their inventory is. So if you look, we're going to look at Saturn. They have an inventory of 6, and each vehicle sells for 38,000. So simple math would be 38,947 times 6. So as normal, you're going to see a lot of F9s. And so you hit F9 just to see that it's active and it's changing. This is purely for training purposes. In regards to the structure, we have the SUMPRODUCT. It multiplies arrays of numbers and sums the resultant array. We have the COUNTIF, counts cells that meet a criteria. And then we have in this other arrangement, we have just SUMPRODUCT. So what are we doing? The COUNTIF function can be used within the SUMPRODUCT function to count the number of cells that contain one or multiple values. Here's how it works. SUMPRODUCT COUNTIF. Why are we using this? What we're looking for are automakers 9 and retail price 9. So what does that say? Well, we have name ranges here. What are we trying to do with COUNTIF? Automaker 9. Automaker 9 equals B5 to B15 here. We have total retail 9. Total retail 9 equals F5 to F7. All we're doing is asking, well, how many automakers do we see here? The number is 3. It has nothing to do with what we're trying to ultimately accomplish. This is just an example. And then we're going to sum up inventory times the automaker here. Here we have automaker equals F5. Here we have the automaker, which is just this list here, automaker 9. Then we're asking equals F5. Well, F5 would be Saturn. Retail price right here and inventory. All we're doing is saying, look, some products, so some Saturn, by what? Their retail price. Find the retail price of Saturn and just multiply it times inventory. That's it. So over here, we're going to use SUMPRODUCT where the name ranges are automaker, et cetera, et cetera. We need to count the values. This is the previous example. Why are we using this? Purely for training purposes. We don't need this particular formula for anything. We're not using it here. It's just for tutorial purposes. So I'm just walking you through it. The COUNTIF function counts the number of cells inside a specified list that satisfies a given condition. When you specify a list of cells at the criterion for the COUNTIF function, it returns a list of numbers. Let's look inside this thing. And it says range automaker F9. You're going to see the list here. And then we have total retail, which is F9, and that's Saturn, Honda, Acura. That's the criterion. Then what happens? What we asked is, look at this list, automaker 9, and compare it to our automaker, what we're looking for. We're looking for information on these 3 automakers. Then SUMPRODUCT is just going to go in and it's going to look and it's going to see 111. In other words, it sees 3 vehicles. It just adds those numbers up. That's the sum part. Then it's going to multiply times 1. So we're going to see F9, 3. It's just the way Excel works. Be sure to check out our extensive courses, which include Excel data and text manipulation for advanced users, beginners, intermediate. We also have this great essentials, the A to Z for advanced users, the comprehensive beginner level 1 and 2. Then we have our advanced formulas, strictly formulas, great set of courses, which we have a beginner level 1 and beginner level 2, this intermediate level, and we have this advanced level. Click on any of the links. There's a short video that explains everything about the course. Check it out. In regards to the layout here, we have some product, COUNTIF, automaker 99, then a COUNTIF, so we have the 3 automakers, and then that results in 111. And ultimately, SUMPRODUCT looks at that, and given that Kia appears once, Ford once, and Honda once, the list contains the numbers 111. The list is returned to the SUMPRODUCT function. SUMPRODUCT, given a single list to the process, returns the sum. Well, that should be 3. With a small number of values, you can use a list constant like this in your formula. That means you could hard code this. I don't recommend it, but it's also available. On the other hand, we want to look at the inventory times the retail price. We're going to use the SUMPRODUCT alone. And here's the catch. We have this double negative thing, and it's called a unary. It's just a fancy word for double negatives. What it does, it turns information from true false to 0s and 1s. That way, SUMPRODUCT can actually do its math. Otherwise, you can't take true. For example, Saturn would be true because it's in the list, and multiply Saturn times 45,254, and you're going to get an error. So this unary, computer engineers doing their thing, come back and go, well, that's a 1. So we're going to go 1 times this number, or it's going to go 1 times 6 times 454 to come up with this number. That's it. You can read into this more than you want, but don't. Try to keep it as simple as possible. The end result, 271,524. That's just simply 6 times 45,254. That's a quick introduction to SUMPRODUCT and COUNTIF. Dig a little deeper, and then we probably have 5 or 6 different examples. Brad Williams, Excel Prime.